Altered's release is almost here, and the fine folks at Equinox sent me some spoilers to share with you guys. I'm super pumped about this because they sent me Muna spoilers, my favorite faction. So today, without any further ado, let's take a look at the common and rare versions of Aja. What's up, everyone? It's Dan with Maindeck, and I am super excited to bring you all an Altered TCG spoiler video just before the release of the game. Finally, it is coming out so soon. I can't believe it's just over a month. We'll be playing with actual cards at Gen Con, and then the full retail release will happen just a number of weeks after that. So it's an extremely exciting time, and nothing is more exciting in TCGs than when we have spoiler season as well. So let's take a look at Aja, our spoilers for today. Now, as usual, of course, in Altered, every card has common and rare versions. So here we have the common and rare versions of Aja. Now, the thing I found really interesting here was I saw she was a character deity, and I had to look her up, so I was not familiar. I guess I'm not very familiar with Western African religions, mythologies, but Aja is an earth goddess or an Orisha from a Western African mythology. I'm not going to be the source to get the details on this, of course, but I found it just really fun to see all the different influences that Altered is able to put into their game. She is a sort of a goddess of botany and healing, and we can see that right on the artwork. Look at her working with herbs and getting ready to create a medicine for someone in the background there. Now, as a card, Aja is a 4-hand cost and 4 reserve cost, 4/5/4. So as far as those stats, they're nothing crazy, but they're not bad. Actually, having a 5 on Mountain for 4 cost is still pretty decent to see, especially when it's backed up by some 4 still. But it's definitely lower on cost than what a vanilla would be. But her effect is, when played from hand, each player puts the top card of their deck in their mana zone as an exhausted mana orb. While this is just a fascinating ability, kind of a gamble, saying, you know what, I think my end game is going to be a little stronger than yours, and I think it can definitely pay off in Muna, who has some beastly cards that they can certainly work to get out there, including none other than Hydrocana, who is just an insane endgame card with Eternal that gets boosts all the time. So you are going to be tempted in some Muna decks to potentially try and go fairly late into the game and play some higher end stuff to try and close the game out. And I think Aja is going to be a card you're going to look at for those variants of Muna that are looking to just play deeper into the game in general. And if you really, really like her, of course, the rare version is honestly quite a bit stronger here. The cost and stats stay the same, but the effect changes from when played from hand to when played from anywhere. That alone means that Aja is going to act as a double ramp when you want her to. Now, it's for both players again, but in this game, with the way that we trade taking the first action each round, there isn't any sort of tempo advantage your opponent can gain from potentially getting to use the resource first or anything. So really, it's just as long as the stats aren't holding you back too much, it's just sort of a straight escalation of threats. And if your threats can just be stronger than your opponent because you built your deck to take advantage of them, I can see that being quite powerful. Now, you also don't have to just use her twice in a row. The rare version also gets a support ability to, pretty classic Muna support ability to anchor something with hand cost 3 or less. It's an interesting ability on Aja because this deck seems to be looking to try and play later into the game and not maybe run as many lower drops. So anchoring down lower drops is not going to be, I think, always as useful, but it's a nice little tack on there. And I could potentially see, you can't ignore the early game totally. So I can potentially see this allowing you to kind of get yourself into that later game, and then maybe use this to hold down something like a Sneezer Shroom that is stuck around from the early game that was kind of just keeping you from losing too much ground then, while you play your bigger threats out without having to commit any more resources to her. Because, of course, at the point where you use her, you get to 6 mana on the next turn. I'm not sure you want to just be playing another Aja at this point when you could be playing something that costs 6. So I could see it definitely having some utility as well. And as for our out-of-faction version, Aja's out-of-faction version goes to the Bravos faction. Who could have expected that? Bravos, of course, having a number of other cards that kind of work off-ramp, or just being the faction of, I'm going to play huge things and you have to figure out what to do about them. And Aja's out-of-faction version is just the common version, so not the more powerful rare one like we sometimes see. But I think that's perfectly fine when this is already going to be running some Jin that are going to be potentially ramping them as well. So Bravos has lots of access to playing a ramp strategy as well into their Shenlongs or whatever they want to ramp into. And Aja is clearly going to be a potential player, role player in that deck, just giving you all of the ramp options that you might need. So that's really it for this one. I don't have too much to say because this Aja's a pretty straightforward card. You're going to put more mana into your mana zone, and that's going to be how it works. Then you get to play huge things. But it's really nice to see this first set padded out with some of these cards. I think one thing I found in deck building, especially with our limited card pool for a while, is that it just didn't have enough redundancy on effects like this to really like make decks that felt consistent in their ability to enable a strategy like this. So having Aja in addition to things like mana channeling and things like Jin are going to be huge boons to being able to build these decks that maybe do potentially successfully consistently ramp to some really scary threats. So it'll be really fun to explore this. I'm really looking forward to it. I would love to know what you guys think about Aja and Altered and all the excitement coming soon. Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on Aja. Did you have any decks that sprung to mind, or did I miss any card interactions that you think we should talk about? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to chatting with you more about Altered and having more excellent Altered content for you guys coming soon. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks again to Equinox for allowing me to share these spoilers with you all. Muna, of course, is an incredible faction with a lot of depth and a lot of play options, and I think Aja shows that off well. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you in the next one.